always remember lipids cannot soluble in polar solvent. Definitely not water. Okay, definitely not water. So we have very basic chemical the group of this thing. So this is something you guys need to know about that. Okay. So this is the family of the lipids. Okay, we have fatty acid. We have also named as a glyceride. Okay, for the fatty acid, we have saturated and also unsaturated. And this is a very basic question. What is meant by saturated? What is meant by unsaturated? Anyone? Saturated. What is saturated? What is saturated fatty acid? Saturated cannot absorb again. I can say that this answer is not fully correct, but it's something partially. Any others people?
Saturated, there is no double bond.
Okay.
And unsaturated get double bond.
Okay, yes, yes. So we have unsaturated, we have a saturated very easily based on the chemical structures. For Dihan, then you mentioned about saturated cannot absorb again. That will be so-called performance. But originally that depend on the chemical structures. Okay, we have saturated fatty acid, which is you have only single covalent bond between carbon. Okay, definitely you have a double covalent bond between carbon atoms. Okay, so it's very simple based on the chemical structure because when the time we define the saturated also unsaturated is based on the chemical bond. So like Maisara and also Chuyi mentioned about double bond, and then yes, yeah, this is something we also need to mention about here. And then saturated fatty acid and unsaturated fatty acid. Which one is good? I mean, good for your body. Saturated or unsaturated? Which one is good? When the time you go and buy a food, yes, unsaturated. Any reason? Why? Why unsaturated is good for your human body to consume? Why? Yeah, easy to digest because you have a double bond. As according to chemical structures, yes, like mentioned about here, easily to break down, easily to digest. This kind of a so-called explanation is because by the time we have a double covalent bond, so you can have also something so-called electron-rich area. So you have a electron-rich, which is reactive. When the time it is reactive, it means that you can break down easily using hydrolysis or any kind of a chemical way in your body. Okay. However, I have to mention about since we are in Malaysia, and then I'm not sure that when you guys are aware about the soya bean and also palm oil war in general. Okay, we have very common situation now. Okay, palm oil, soya bean oil. We have very common a war between these two in the moment. Although they have a political concern, they have a business side concern, but based on structures, Although they said that when the time we grow for the palm tree, we will damage the forest, yeah, we will damage the animal habitat there, but still for those in the West that still need to buy palm oil. There's a very basic concept about this. Why palm oil still still better than soybean oil? Because palm oil, you have a lot of single covalent bond. You have very little a double bond. For single covalent bond, as we mentioned here, you don't have electron rich area, which is mean that you are very for palm oil. Major single covalent. Although it is not easy to be consumed, to be digested, but still it is really good in high thermal stability. Okay. When the time you are not easy to be digested, which is mean that you also cannot degrade easily by heat, right? You cannot easily to break down. So, for example, if you go to McDonald's, they prepare the fun fries for you. Definitely they will reuse the oil for 1 day, right? If you're using soybean oil, olive oil, how many times you can reuse it? 1, 2, maybe 3 times. It is already oxidized. It is already become brownish. Definitely you will feel loss of appetite, or maybe the smell of the oil will become unpleasant. So that's the thing. Even though the palm oil is not good, but still those in waste, they still need to use palm oil for something cooking at high temperature. So that's something related to our not biomedical, but it's something we need to know lah, because you guys in Malaysia is very important thing. And then so we have this kind of stuff. And also, I have to inform you that for this kind of so-called double bond and single bond things, maybe for the next slide, we will talk about this, about double bond and single bond things. It's very important for you to identify some of the chemical industry in Malaysia. Okay, that they're also serving a different kind of a grade of the food for different country, different regions. Anyway, we have fatty acid, we have a glyceride, we have a neutral glyceride, we have a phosphoglyceride. I will give you some example of these two, and also non-glyceride lipids, complex lipids. Okay, we have wax, we have a lipid, we have a steroid, and then we have these two myelins and also glycolipids and lipoproteins. And some of these things I will give you example and also the simple definition. What we will go through as our stuff. Give me a second. Because our ClO2, if I'm not mistaken, is about fundamental of lipids and carbohydrate. So here you see ClO2 describe the function and biomolecules such as lipids and carbohydrates. So that's the thing we have to cover a little bit smart for here. And then no choice, you guys do need to memorize a simple thing, how to define fat saturated, how to define unsaturated, why it is so important between these two, and then what is so special about phosphoglyceride, if you know how to sketch it. Okay. So for the next slide. Okay. Generally, lipids are divided into we have something so-called saponifiable lipids, and also something so-called non. Definitely one is sapo, another one is not saponification. Okay. Anyone know what is meant by saponification? What is meant by saponification? What is meant by? What is meant by saponification? Because if you don't know saponification, you cannot identify how do we do the classifications. Yeah, hydration reactions. Yeah, it's a process involve a conversion of fat. Well, come on. Is it you guys are so fast? Go and Google it. Damn nice. Okay, it is a conversion of lipid into salt. Yes, making salt hydration. Yeah, all of these things we learn in the high school. So if you want to convert a lipids into a salt, which is mean that you need to have a certain chemical structures. Okay, which is mean that you need to have a certain chemical structures. So for the saponifiable lipids, you have that structures. For the non-saponifiable lipids, you don't have that structures. It's very easy. So with or without that structures, because that structure is very important when you want to make a salt. Okay, it's one kind of something. By the time you have a use cooking oil at home, you can just prepare a salt at home. It's I think easy lah. I'm not sure whether you can buy sodium hydroxide. 3 years back, we can buy sodium hydroxide easily, but now it seems that it is not, because we have water contamination around water reservoir in Johor. Then the government that didn't catch the factory who causes sodium hydroxide contamination in the drinking water, but they restrict people buy and sell sodium hydroxide. I'm not sure what government do, but this is not right. So it's not easy for you guys to buy sodium hydroxide in the moment. Okay, even in the lab, we also need to record every single gram of a sodium hydroxide. Okay, this what you see now is actually the presentation evaluation I haven't prepared. This one is for next week. Let's see. We have saponifiable lipids. So we define them as it's a lipids contain esters which can undergo saponifications. Okay, so I'm giving you examples such as wastes. Since you guys are in this area, biomedical engineering, so I'm like to ask you, what is meant by wax? This one. This one. So yeah, I have a lot of typo here. Okay, what is meant by wax? What is meant by wax? Wax on food, yeah. Example, wax on food. Amiro? What is the example of wax on food? Yeah, waterproof is kind of a physical description for the wax. Okay, wax is a kind of a waterproof thing. So you will reduce the water content, you will increase the hydrophobicity. It's a lipophilic compound. Yes lah. Okay, say so yes. So why we need to learn wax? Why we need to learn wax? In biomedical engineering, you see, only mentioned about waterproof. Amiru mentioned about wax on food. Yes. Why we need these two properties? Why you need wax on food? Why you need waterproof? Anyone got ideas? Preservative, yes, to keep the food attractive. Yes, food preservation. Yes, Retain water, yes. It is something you see when the time as a you see you guys are explore so many media things. Understand there's a common sense in you actually. So the way we conduct the classes, always we will ask you because you're not in the first year and second year, you're now in the final year. So definitely, I believe there's a lot of knowledge inside you. So we will try to become not a lecturer. We will try to become a facilitator to induce you to think. So by the time you have a wax, so-called waterproof, hydrophobic properties. So that's the thing you can protect the food from contacting with water. With water, most of the thing will be degraded. Okay, so without water, yeah, you can preserve the food. So this is very common sense. So most of the apple that you eat now that can have an apple wax, either it is naturally or either man-made. Okay, we have that kind of concern, but that will be daily life. How about in medical engineering? Do you know that most of the cream that you apply on your wound, for example, now a mosquito bite you, for example, let me share something. Mosquito cream. Give me a second. Yeah, this one is a really common lotion and cream that we use at home. I buy this for my children. Okay. This is normally containing wax. They have wax inside it. They have wax inside it. Why? Why we have wax inside it as a main matrix? Because this wax carries blood. That blood definitely is good for the insect bite to reduce the inflammations. I mean that kind of things. But why wax as a main matrix? It is very common that you guys link with the hydrophobicity, and then that hydrophobicity will make sure that okay, yeah. Which is hydrophobic. For example, when the time you apply this cream, on your skin, it will not be dissolved, soluble by your sweat. So it will long lasting, maybe a longer bit on that injury part. So that's the thing we need. This kind of so-called properties, hydrophobicity. It will not soluble in sweat. Okay, it will stay there at least a longer time compared to those liquid or maybe something drug which is hydrophilic. So that's a way we need to learn about wax. Okay, that's a wax. Okay, so we have a triglyceride. I will give you some example of a triglyceride. What is a specific chemical structure there? And phosphoglyceride, sphingolipids. Okay, that's the thing that I will give you some example. I lazy to restart the numbering lah. How you guys just hope you guys understand about this. I lazy to start the numbering. Okay, so for non-saponifiable lipids, so do not contain any ester. That's what we define saponification is the chemical or the molecule, the lipids, you have ester structure that enable you to undergo saponifications. So you need ester. So now non-saponifiable lipids, you do not contain any ester group, and so cannot be saponified. Okay. So we have something such as steroid. So prostaglandins. prostaglandin is very kind of a special lipid that you need to have inside your body. I'm not sure whether this thing ring any bells. Okay. And then we will go to a specific support. Saponifiable. So you have another two subdivision under saponifiable lipids. One is a so-called simple lipids, so which is contain two types of component, okay, which is and we have complex. We have a complex lipids contain more than two components. Okay, something like you can have a fatty acid and alcohol. It's very common now. Okay, so this is something. How do we define? So for the next. For fatty acid, so slowly but slowly we will have to understand how do we define all of this. So fatty acid are long chain carboxylic acid. So yeah, I have a typo all the time. And be saturated. Or unsaturated. When the time you have a fatty acid, you have something like this. So this R group is so-called alka. The R group here is so-called alka. Okay, so okay, it is alka group. R is so-called alka, which is you have only R is alka, contain only C and H. It should be long chain. If you are short chain, you are not fatty acid. You are just carboxylic acid. For fatty acid, normally you need to have a carbon more than 12 lah. That would be better if you want to consider that as long. Okay, if you only have one or two so-called methanoic acid, ethanoic acid, that is not a fatty acid. Okay, that's not fatty acid. So we have example of so-called carboxylic acid. And then definitely we know this one is the tail, it's an R group. You have only C and H, which is mean that you are hydrophobic. While at the head there, when the time you donating the H, which is mean that you are soluble in water for the polar head. Okay, this is hydrophilic. This is hydrophobic. Okay, we have a hydrophilic head and also hydrophobic tail. Okay, this is something determine the structures of a membrane, the structure of the membrane that you need to have. And also some drug was used this fatty acid to deliver as a single thing so-called mixed cell. Okay, as a single thing so-called mixed cell. I will show you some of the example later. Okay. So for the also the same. This is the applications of fatty acid in certain conditions. Okay, in aqueous solution, fatty acid associate. Okay. In aqueous solution, so in aqueous solution, what is the structure arrangement of fatty acid? Can someone just illustrate to me? When the time you have this, thing, so surrounded by water, because aqueous solution is mean that you're surrounded by water. So when the time you have a lot of fatty acid, you have an S here. So what will it be? What will it do? Anyone? So when the time you have a lot of fatty acid, you put inside an aqueous solution. Okay. What this acid do? And then until you have a new arrangement, new structural arrangement. Anyone? Hello? Hello? Anyone? Any ideas? The tail will face water. The tail will face water. The concept is good, but you actually totally reverse. The polar head will, the polar head will face towards water. Yes, the polar tail will, will face water. So that's the thing. You can have something like this. So this kind of a network, it will rearrange because you have a lot of fatty acid. So actually you will have something like this. Surrounded by water, hydrophilic medium, we name it as aqueous there, aqueous solutions. And then your hydrophilic head will be facing water, but the tail will be inside that, inside the sphere. So there's a ball of this thing so-called micelle. Okay, some scientists is very, I don't know, they say that it's very accurate science. They use this kind of so-called micelle to have a self-arranged structures. So inside that cell, okay, inside these structures, there will capsulate drug. So they got some drug there. Okay, at certain situations, okay, for example, the hydrophilicity of the medium change. For example, let's say if you have high cholesterol content in your body, which is mean that the blood having really high concentration of cholesterol, hydrophobicity change, so the tail will be totally reversed. So the drug encapsulated inside that sphere will be released, and that drug may be used to reduce the cholesterol. Okay, we name it as something so-called they use that kind of so-called micelle for drug encapsulate inside that micelle and then stimulate the responsive system. when you have a hydrophobicity change inside your body fluid, and then this micelle will be totally destroyed or rearranged. So the drug inside that micelle will be released to the body fluid in order to reduce the hydrophobicity. This is how smart they are. Okay, I'm so lucky that I joined one talk by a Nobel Prize winner that talking about this last time. But this is not my field lah. Okay, so I will describe it in the sentence there. So you have a number of fatty acid which are associated with each other in spherical cluster, so-called in which hydrocarbon tails tangle each other up. Okay, that will have a so-called entanglement between the tail. Entanglement is mean that they become something crumble each other. Okay, through this dispersion forces. Okay. Leaving shell of carboxylate. When the time you have a COO structure, remember carboxylate. Okay, it's a dispersion with R dispersion. Carboxylate is an ion. It should be something with CO minus. That minus should be on top. I lazily choose that. Okay. Let me access carboxylate ion. It's not carboxylate structure. It's a carboxylate ion. COO minus. Facing upwards. Okay. In contact with water. Okay. So how do we describe the formation of this micelle? Yeah, so it will associate with each other in spherical structure clusters, so-called micelle, and then the hydrocarbon tail will tangle each other, so will be something like crumble each other inside the sphere, and then for the hydrophilic part will be facing out the water there. And then this kind of micelle is very smart, so this will be the application of this micelle in the biomedical engineering. In certain biomedical engineering, yes, you are need to prepare a so-called smart material can release the drug when you have a different kind of so-called stimuli responsive system. Okay, it's very common. You can just simply Google it actually. So you can have a. You can just Google it. You can have a lot of publication. You see that. You have a lot of publication. Polymeric micelle for drug delivery. Yeah, you see that this is how they justify. You see that there's go back to years 2002 even somehow. Okay, I'm not sure if they have any pictures, or maybe we don't go here. Yeah. It's very common. You see that they have a hydrophobic, hydrophilic, so they can encapsulate self-assembly. They put some drug inside there, and at a certain condition, they will release the drug. Okay, you see, it's something like what we discussed here. You have a hydrophobic, hydrophilic, you put in some drug there, and then you release the drug. Hydrophobic drug, you see that there's a drug dissolved in the tail parts. So there's so-called drug-loaded missile. Okay, we never have so-called self-assembly. Based on the hydrophobicity or so-called aqueous condition, the molecule structure will self-assembly, and then you have this kind of thing. It's very common here. You see that there's a number of paper published by years, and something 20 or 30 years back technology. You see, even this kind of thing. Okay. Okay. Next. Yes, we have to go through another things. Maybe this is the thing that you need to memorize. Characteristic of fatty acid. So you have a so-called straight chain, no branch. You have a straight chain, no branch. And then you have a normally you have only even number of carbon atoms per molecule. Okay. And then we have also the melting point increase with number of carbon. Formic acid. So we have two essential fatty acid that you cannot synthesize by your body. One is so-called linoleic acid and also linolenic acid. Okay, both of these acids you have 18 carbon per molecule. You cannot synthesize in the body. You must obtain from diet. So where to obtain? And then what is the function of these two acids? What is the function? This, I think if I share with you the name of the acid is very easy to, I mean, not the chemical name, but the common name of the acid here. So you will know what it is. you do not linoleic acid, you do not linolenic acid is very simple, it's very common, I understand. But if you tell me that you don't know what is meant by omega-6, omega-3, then you are in trouble. What is meant by omega-6? What is meant by omega-3? It's very common when the time you buy some food, right? What is meant by omega-6? Omega-3, where you will see common name. Especially when the time you go shopping, you go to Tesco to buy grocery. Omega-6, omega-3 is very common there. What is that? Yeah, shop for eggs, you see. Normally, fish, yes, fish. Yeah, fish oil, especially those eggs, they mentioned that they have a so-called omega-6 rich, omega-3 rich. Okay, it's kind of a so-called advertisement. It's a placement of a double bond. What is meant by placement double bond? Please search where you can get this two acid from your daily consumption, the food that you consume. Expensive eggs, expensive, yes. Those foreigners, you understand, most of the time, foreigner student, you guys stay away from your home, your parents not here, you need to buy grocery for yourself. For local student, normally you will not buy the food yourself. I will not say confirm, but most of the time you will not. Okay, for foreigner, you guys need to survive, so you need to know the price of each food. And then omega-6, omega-3 is a way of they justify why they want to put the price tag there. It's very important. And then you have to find yourself what is the function of these two acids. Okay, please find it. You have to find yourself. I will not give you anything of this. So if I ask this thing in test, don't complain. Okay, do not complain. So we will have one slide, which is so this is very common stuff. Yeah, I'm giving you here. See that? It's very common fatty acid that we have in our body. Normally, as I mentioned, fatty acid should be more than 12. You see here, we start with 14, 16, 18, 20 here. And then we also have a so-called oleic acid. I have this kind, I have certain of this acid in my lab because I'm doing something. Last time I wanted to try for something myself. It's very common. Okay. You can just get this thing from from Google. It's very simple. See that linolenic acid. You have this thing from the soybean oil, linseed oil. So what I want to tell you that most of this animal oil, vegetable oil, for example, in palm oil, actually palm oil is a combination of different type of fatty acid. Okay, for example, 70% of a palmatic acid, 20% was stearic acid. Okay, so by consume palm oil, you actually can obtain few types of fatty acid. Okay, this is what you get up. Okay. So we can have a so-called triglyceride. Animal fat and vegetables oils are esters composed of 3 molecules of fatty acid. Okay, 3 molecules of fatty acid. Okay, by the time we're talking about triglyceride, it is mean that you have already a glycerol reacted with fatty acid. Glycerol molecule producing producing structures. So triglyceride. Oh, no, it should be triglyceride or triacylglycerol. Okay, we have also a common name for the triglyceride, but it is the same. So when the time you have a glycerol reacted to form fatty acid, reacted with a 3 fatty acid, okay, then you will have something so-called triester of glycerol, so-called triglyceride. Okay. So I would like to know the name of forward. What is the name of the forward reaction, and also what is the name of the backward reaction? Okay. Please identify by yourself what is meant by the forward and also what is meant by the backward reactions. And then we have also something like what you can consume for the daily. Okay. So animal fat, okay, and vegetable oil. We're using fat and oil to justify the physical properties of a fatty acid. Okay, fat, which is mean that you are solid at room temperature, oil, you are liquid at room temperature. Okay, this is how do we justify that. Okay. As I mentioned just now, when the time you consume a food, actually you are consume different type of acid. Okay, so that's the thing. I define animal fats and also vegetable oils are mixture of triglyceride. With a different fatty acid. Okay. This is the example that you will have when the time you eat a beef or a chicken. So actually, it's a percentage by weight for the saturated acid and also unsaturated fat. Okay, so you have actually eating a mixture of a triglyceride every day. So I would like to know. So what are the common difference between fats and oil? Okay. Give me a second. I go and text something. common difference between the characteristic of the fats and also oil. So that is something that you need to search by your own. Okay. As what we mentioned just now, the reaction for the formation of glyceride and also the reaction of a glyceride. So you have also one of the reaction is very important in your body. We name as hydrolysis of a triglyceride. Okay, hydrolysis is one of the very important of a triglyceride reaction that you when the time you consume the food. So actually, this is a basic chemical reaction that you can have, and also it's one of the way that you can use for the measurements of so-called fatty acid in your body. Okay, by taking out the body fluid or body's constituents, then you go for the reactions. Actually, the lipids there that will consume, that will be reacted with a triglycerol, and then by studying the product, also color change of a certain enzyme, actually you can observe the concentration of a glycerol in your body. So it's kind of a very common reaction scheme that we will use. Okay. So the basic thing actually, maybe the right one is so complicated, but this one is very basic. When the time you have a triglyceride, you have the water there. So this water will hydrolyze these three structures, and then you can get the fatty acid and also glycerol. Okay. So here, by descriptions, okay, we have triglyceride can be broken apart with water and acid catalyst, because you need to have an acid catalyst in order to form the intermediate. Okay. Okay. So this is something that you can have it in your home. Okay. So we have a so-called normal hydrolysis of triglyceride in lab, actually by using water with a catalyst of acid, or otherwise using lipase, a kind of a digestive enzyme. So you can have a digestion here. So we can have something. The next will be the saponification of a triglyceride. In the saponification, actually, just now is someone answering me that you have reactions to form a salt there. So in the time you have a triglyceride, you react with the sodium hydroxide, and then you can get a glycerol and a salt. Okay, a sodium palmitate if you're using palmitate oil. Okay, this is how we describe the reactions. Actually, I planned some experiment for this. Like I asked you guys get some oil, and then to react with sodium hydroxide that you have in my lab. Then you get different types of the salt. Okay, and then you study the reactions. It should be sodium hydroxide or otherwise using potassium hydroxide. You need to have a strong base. Okay, to form carboxylate salt. Okay, fatty acid. Okay, this is how we describe the reaction of saponifications. So without the extra structure, definitely you cannot undergo carbonification, saponifications. Okay. We are now preparing the final exam stuff. Now faculty is so busy. Hydrogenation of a triglyceride. Then we can have our hydrogenations. So in hydrogenation, how hydrogenation of a triglyceride functions and why it is so important to have a hydrogenations. When the time I was in something like high school, I already explored the important things of hydrogenation of a triglyceride. Because when the time you have a so-called hydrogenation of a glyceride there, and then you can convert the alkenes become alkane. That's the way we name a hydrogenation. You adding hydrogen inside an unsaturated molecule. Why it is so important for these reactions? Where do we apply this in lipids? Where do we apply this in lipids? So please understand about this because this is one of the things that important. And then, for example, as you know that Malaysia we sell a lot of palm oil. We sell a lot of palm oil. Okay, we sell a lot of palm oil. Okay, we sell a lot of this oil. A lot of this oil. I'm not sure whether you guys know about this or not. For the oil that we sell in Malaysia, it is not the same as the oil that we sell to Middle East and also the oil that we sell to maybe Northern Europe, for example, Russia. Okay, the palm oil that we sell in Malaysia, it is not the same that compared to the palm oil that we sell to Middle East, to sell to European country. Why? And what is the difference? Okay, this is a very basic understanding of a lipids reactions. Definitely, it is related to what I mentioned in this slide, hydrogenation. Okay, the oil that we sell in Malaysia is not the same as the oil that we sell to another country. It depends on the hydrogenation process. Okay, for a certain country, okay, their room temperature is way different compared to Malaysia. Some of the country in North Europe, okay, European country, they are very cold, and some in Middle East is very hot. In order to make sure the oil is maintained room temperature, liquid at room temperature. So that's the thing we need to perform different hydrogenation level. We name it as something we so-called shortening. Okay, by using different chemical reaction hydrogenation, you can have palm oil in solid form or otherwise in liquid form. Because when the time you're adding hydrogenation, the hydrogen there, you will increase the molecular weight. By increasing molecular weight, you will have high melting point. Then you can have a solid palm oil. Okay, so all this so-called shortening is a reaction that involving hydrogenation. So that's the thing. They have a so-called you see coconut oil shortening. Okay, coconut oil shortening. Okay, we have all these things lah. It's one of the common chemical reaction for the food industry in Malaysia. Okay, it's very common here lah. Okay, so you have to get some note from it. Okay, for the next slide. So we have waxes. Okay, common waxes that you have in your daily life will be this. Is a honeycomb. Is a honeycomb, and then you have something like this. Is a structure for honeycomb. Okay, it was found in the beeswax. Okay, we name as Marisol comitet. Okay, these waxes we cannot consume, we cannot digest easily. Okay, some people claim eating this thing will make you feel younger, beauty. You can have a better so-called texture of your skin. For me, this is something you cannot dissolve easily. The structure of this thing is so big, so bulky. How are you going to hydrolyze these structures? It's not easy unless you're eating something constituent or something chemical that helping you to digest it. So waxes are simple lipids content of fatty acid joined with a long chain alcohol. It's long chain alcohol. Okay, just now we learned what is short chain, right? This is long chain alcohol. So that's the thing, you can have something like this. 29, 30. You have 30 carbon here in the alcohol. So we name it long chain. Okay. Waxes are insoluble in water and not as easily hydrolyzable as fat and oil. It is not easy to be hydrolyzed, as you are not only having carbon long chain around the acid part, but you're also having a long chain in the alcohol part. Although this is ester, but since the hydrophobic portion is very big, is very common here, then it is not soluble if you compare to fats and also oil. So as what I mentioned there, you apply waxes as a cream. Because it is not easily to be soluble in water, your sweat will not dissolve it. So you will have a long-term effect, long-term application of this kind of so-called drug if you put the drug inside that waxes. Okay, so that's the thing. We have one lecturer, I think Dr. Shafika, I think so lah. Maybe not Dr. Shafika, Dr. Iza. I'm not sure any of you was supervised under, is currently supervised under Dr. Iza. Dr. Iza, maybe she will conduct some research on the beeswax, also beehive or something. And then that is the place that you can prepare the ointment from this kind of so-called honey thing. Okay, yeah, this is about the topics. Okay, we go through one more slide, then we end our class today. So we can have something so-called phosphoglyceride. Phosphoglyceride is a kind of complex glyceride. Complex lipids, okay. When the time we mentioned about cell membrane, then you will recall whatever we got it here. So it is something, cell membrane is full with phosphoglyceride. So when you talk about phosphoglyceride, if you go to the basic chemical structure, it will be something like this. So you have a two fatty acid combined with that most similar to triglyceride, but you have another one which is not the ester structure. You have a phosphate group there. Okay, so which is mean that you have one head here, phosphoglyceride, and two tail, which is ester structures. So if you go to somewhere, we name it as a schematic diagram. So these two tail will be here. Okay, so when the time you have a so-called unsaturated fatty acid, you will have a bending. If you have a saturated fatty acid, actually you are straight chain like this. No matter what, you have two tail, one hydrophobic head. Okay, so you can have something like this. How you going to illustrate the schematic diagram of the phosphoglyceride? Okay, with this structure, they will rearrange them together. Definitely, we know that in human body, majorly we are aqueous. So the head is outside. If the head is outside, okay, of the water, then the tail will be inside. So they will arrange themselves in this kind of so-called bilayer lipid structures. Okay, I think that's it for today. If you have any question, please ask. If not, then we will end our class today. Please remember that our test 2 will be based on what we go through in the class. Do you have any questions? I will upload some of the reference in the e-learning later. Okay. Any question? No. Okay, then that's it for today. And then for the FYP, I want to take some chances to mention about FYP. Please prepare if next semester you guys still cannot come back to UTM. We are not sure how MCO will be. Is there any MCO in coming months? I'm not sure. If no serious, those who stay around Daman-U, you guys still can come back to UTM with application of a special request lah. FYP2 can, FYP1 cannot. And then you have to discuss with your supervisor lah. Your supervisor will ask the management about this later. I mean, after completing the final exam, you guys can try to come to V01 for some lab work. Okay. If not, that's it for today. Have a nice day.